Welcome to another change-making conversation from Baptist News Global. You're listening to a special podcast series titled Highest Power, Church and State, featuring writer, poet, and musician Rick Pidcock. Now here's Rick.
This is in response to Mayor Bruce Harrell's comments and public statement that he put out as Christians gathered to peacefully worship at Cal Anderson Park and were attacked by Antifa and others. And the mayor of this city turned around and blamed the Church of Jesus Christ for the violence. We are calling on the mayor to either apologize or resign, and we are going to stand on these steps and make our voice heard.
What started off as a worship gathering on Saturday in Cal Anderson Park quickly devolved into a confrontation between protesters and police that led to the arrest of 23 people. But the story didn't stop there. Mayor Harrell put out a statement saying the city values its LGBTQ community members and decrying violence. He said, quote, "Seattle is proud of our reputation as a welcoming, inclusive city for LGBTQ communities, and we stand with our trans neighbors when they face bigotry and injustice." He added, "Today's far-right rally was held here for this very reason, to provoke a reaction by promoting beliefs that are inherently opposed to our city's values in the heart of Seattle's most prominent LGBTQ neighborhood." So as you heard in the intro, the organizers of the event on Saturday claimed they were being persecuted. In fact, they were so offended by Mayor Harrell's words that they decided to organize a second event on the steps of Seattle City Hall in order to demand that Mayor Harrell either apologize or resign. And not only that, but they hired a lawyer to go after the mayor. In a report from Baptist News Global's Mark Wingfield wrote, "Pastor Russell Johnson, one of the event organizers, hired a lawyer over the weekend to threaten the mayor. Quote, the city's early shutdown of Saturday's event constituted an illegal heckler's veto for which we are actively considering legal action," the letter to Harrell said. It was signed by attorney Nathaniel Taylor of the law firm Ellis, Lee & McKinstry. 3 years ago, Taylor represented Seattle Pacific University in a lawsuit against the state attorney general over an investigation into the school's anti-gay hiring practices. Last year, Taylor represented World Vision in its unsuccessful defense against charges of hiring discrimination against a woman who is lesbian. In his letter to Mayor Harrell, Taylor scolded, "When you were sworn in as mayor of Seattle, you took an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, which protects both free speech and assembly as well as ensures the equal protection of law for all citizens, regardless of viewpoint or religious belief. We intend to hold the city accountable for its illegal responses to our clients' constitutionally protected activity." So during the Rattle in Seattle worship protest at Seattle City Hall, there were more counter-protests, more arrests, and yes, more worship warfare. Here are some of the highlights that were put out by the protest organizers.
This ain't a race issue, this is a rights issue. You violated ours, and we're saying no more. These are the moments we cried tears over. These are the moments we laid hands on each other. These are the moments we laid it up. It's what we need. So we stand in the day of the third great awakening.
They're saying we're standing at the edge of the third great awakening? The level of self-importance these people have is so over the top. But what would you expect when the lens they're seeing the world through is the lens of hierarchy and the highest power? So Russell Johnson, pastor of Pursuit Northwest and the pastor who hired the lawyer, went on Fox News with Laura Ingraham to share his characterization of what happened at Cal Anderson Park on Saturday.
It was crazy. It started on Saturday with a worship event in Cal Anderson Park. And that event has, of course, been labeled by the media as some sort of anti-LGBT type rally, and it wasn't. That event offered free haircuts to kids, free bike giveaways, free groceries for the community, free prayer for people who were in need of it, and then it also incorporated a worship element at the end of that outreach.
So it's interesting how he tries to say that the media is portraying this as an anti-LGBTQ type rally. Like, first of all, they had a gigantic "Don't Mess With Our Kids" banner on the top of the stage that was in pink and blue, the traditional transgender colors. It was also put on by an organization called Her Voice Movement that claims liberals are sexualizing kids and that those who affirm transgender kids are butchers. So this isn't the media making up a narrative about them. This was an event that was in an LGBTQ popular park, and they have gigantic anti-transgender banners. They also brought up a bunch of people that used to be LGBTQ and who were saying that they got saved and became straight again. This isn't the media making up a narrative. This is what was going on. Also, he says there was this worship element at the end. The worship event lasted nearly 4.5 hours with a massive sound system and a full band. People yelling and screaming and chanting and cheering. This was not just some little, 3 songs at the end of making bikes for kids and stuff and giving free haircuts out. The way these people are reframing what happened on Saturday is so dishonest. One of the people who showed up to the response rally on Tuesday was Brandy Cruz of the popular Undivided podcast. In addition to laughing about how unhappy the counter-protesters were, she went on and on about how amazing all the worship warriors were. So I put together a soundbite that combines clips of what she was claiming about the worship warriors compared to audio from Saturday.
I have never been at a protest in 15 years where I did not hear speakers utter one word of hate.
Commanded to leave now. Shh, quiet, 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 quiet. Quiet you down. You're done. Out now, out, out, out. Get out. You bow at the name of Jesus right now.
One word of judgment.
And that's why you are what you are today.
Make one call to violence.
You want to throw down with me? Go. Let's go. Let's go. Get your rocks ready. Are you ready? Jesus!
A crowd with the absolute happiness.
I was just like you, but you can be free too. Can you see how happy we are?
They're trying to rewrite what happened on Saturday, just like they're trying to rewrite what happened on January 6th and what happened throughout our nation's history. This is gaslighting. They're trying to convince us to question what we can all see and hear. But why should we care if we don't live in Seattle? Besides the obvious love of neighbor factor here, there are 2 other reasons. One is that the Trump administration and the FBI are now involved. Here is Russell Johnson at the Seattle City Hall Tuesday night.
The FBI has officially opened an investigation into the city of Seattle.
In addition to Johnson's words, Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI, posted on X, quote, "We have asked our team to fully investigate allegations of targeted violence against religious groups at the Seattle concert. Freedom of religion isn't a suggestion." And remember, this is the guy who said in 2018, quote, "My entire life right now is about owning the libs. That's it." Sounds like a real objective person here to be leading the FBI's charge into this event. Paula White Kane added, quote, "The White House Faith Office condemns the violent disruption of Seattle's May Day USA worship event. We affirm the fundamental rights to free speech and religious freedom for all Americans, as protected by federal law. Public officials must protect the inalienable rights of all citizens regardless of their faith or religious beliefs. We urge the city of Seattle to uphold these rights at all faith-based events. safeguarding the ability of people of faith to gather and express their beliefs without fear of harassment or violence. Again, they do have a First Amendment right to express their beliefs. But if you're going to go and target specific areas in order to express beliefs that are dehumanizing to the people that live there, you have to expect you're going to get some pushback. And don't miss what Johnson said at the end of the clip I played. He said, "That's how we win." They're going out of their way to wage spiritual warfare against their LGBTQ neighbors, especially transgender people, because they're the easiest to pick on in our society today. That's who Trump targeted in his final ads of the 2024 election. And with June being Pride Month, you can bet they're going to be really obnoxious, given the fact that they know they have the backing of the federal government to get away with dehumanizing people. The second reason we should care about what happened in Seattle is that these worship events are happening all over the country. They're not just isolated to Seattle. As I wrote in my piece this week, when I went to D.C. in October, Sean Foyt explained in a private event at the National Press Club, quote, "This movement is built to wage war. God has connected us over the last 4 years with, I feel, the Navy SEAL gangsters of America. We know them now in every city, and we're going to empower them, we're going to equip them, and we're going to train them to do everything that we do, but on the next level." So Sean Foyt has his fingerprints all over these events. In fact, while his buddy Russell Johnson was conducting worship warfare in Seattle over the weekend, Foyt was teaming up with Russell Brand to do worship and mass baptisms in Florida. And here is some audio from Foyt over the weekend sharing his vision.
We are in a 4-year, I believe we're in a 4-year window. I believe God has orchestrated this moment. We witnessed together a millimeter miracle, right? The enemy's perfect setup. And then at the last second, we had a guy barely tilt his head. I don't think you realize the future of the world if that had not happened. God was in that moment. And when things like that happen that are undeniable, I don't care which side of the political aisle you are, that's an undeniable miracle, right? And when you look at that and you realize you're living in the confluence that all of a sudden urgency has to come upon you. And I'm not going to go into, I've been having some crazy dreams lately, and a lot of the dreams center around the fact that this is not the season where we can let up on the gas pedal. We cannot get complacent. I had never seen more Americans praying, fasting, worshiping, gathering, leading up to last November. I had never seen that in my whole life. But now's not the season to coast and to get into Florida chill mode. This is the season where we press on, we double down. We step our foot on the neck of the enemy and we say, "You're finished," over our families, over our cities. I mean, listen, I'm going to share with you a little bit of a testimony, but I've been all the way from Mozambique to Mar-a-Lago. And we've been worshiping and seen God move. We were worshiping just last month in the White House. I mean, and when I'm talking about worshiping, this is not Baptist style. Like, this is full-blown Holy Ghost. Laying hands on the hallways, prophesying, rebuking demons. I mean, like the whole thing.
This is the season where we step our foot on the neck of the enemy and say, "You're finished." Again, it's not a season to love your neighbors yourself. It's not a season to cultivate the fruit of the Spirit. It's not a season to practice the Sermon on the Mount. It's a season to step your foot on the neck of the enemy and say they're finished. This is actually direct language that was spoken on January 6th at the insurrection attempt. Two other things Foyt is excited about are Bible sales and young men wanting to go to church.
Right now in America, Bible sales are up 30%. Right now in America, more young men are going to church than young women. House of David is the #1 show, and that show has ignited a 700% increase of Google searches for the Bible.
It's interesting hearing conservative men celebrate that more young men are attending church now than young women, But then they assume that's a good thing and never seem to wonder why that might be. So where is Foyt getting this vision of stepping your foot on the neck of the enemy from? And what does that have to do with the Bible and with young men?
And it actually started when I was reading with Ezra and Zion in bed the night before I left. And we were reading the Action Bible. Have you guys seen that? It's so awesome for little boys. It's like, it's like shows all of the, people being stabbed, and it's like all the awesome parts of the Old Testament, fire everywhere. And, it's like, it's just so fun, especially for boys, it's like brings it all to life. And, I grew up, we had Salty. You guys remember Salty? Come on, man, Salty.
This is why all throughout these conversations, throughout this type of worship, you're very often going to see these references, like I said last time, to David and Goliath and to the Canaanite conquests. This is why a lot of children's worship songs are about the Canaanite conquests and David and Goliath. They love these visions of violence, and they say that praise is the water my enemies drown in. That was another one of the songs that they sang at the event on Saturday. It's a song that is sung in congregations all over the United States. It's not about loving your enemies, it's about seeing them drown. Another part of the challenge we're facing with these people is that not only do they daydream about people being stabbed to death and fire everywhere, but they also place political and spiritual significance on their actual dreams as well. On May 14th, Foyt had a dream that he cannot stop referencing over the past 2 weeks. So here he is describing his dream, how it shook him, and what he thinks it means for our nation politically.
I had a crazy, wild dream last night, and I just feel led to share it. I don't get tons of dreams. This one was very specific. It was very, like, I woke up really shaken, all right? But check this dream out. This is wild. So in the dream, this was right before I woke up at 4:30 this morning to rush here. In the dream, I was sitting in a van, and we were driving in a van, and I think it was through America. It was to the countryside somewhere. Inside of the van was Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, and one other female young reporter. I don't know who she was. I didn't recognize her. And, of course, all these guys are conservative. They're just brilliant guys. They run media organizations. They're integral in American politics, all that kind of stuff. We were, in the dream, we were talking about how we couldn't believe that we lost the momentum from the election. We were lamenting at the fact that it was like, how do we win the election? We had all this momentum, we had all this prayer, we had all these people mobilized, and yet we didn't do anything with it. And we were talking about what happened. Like, how did this happen? How did we get to this place where we thought things were going to change in America, and we've seen very little stuff change, very little legislation, very little, lasting impact. And I was in the van looking at all of them, looking at Ben Shapiro, looking at Tucker, looking at Charlie, looking at this female reporter who I don't know who it was. And I was saying, guys, we have to turn the nation back to God. We have to worship. We have to pray. It's a heart change. It's a heart posture. It's not just politics. Like, people need to return back to God. We need to bring back prayer. We need to bring back worship. We need to see a lasting change. I said, we've got apathetic. We thought we could just win an election and things would change overnight, but we lost the heart in the midst of it. And I was like preaching to them out of conviction of why we haven't seen a lasting change. And then all of a sudden I woke up, and here I am catching a flight to Washington, D.C. to lead worship with members of Congress in the Capitol tonight. God gave me this dream because it was so specific. And another weird thing in the dream, I was wearing glasses, but the glasses had 3 frames. Like, it wasn't just 2. It was like one right here, and then one lens in the middle. It was like 3 lenses on my glasses, which is weird. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but...
So let's just play the game to demonstrate how subjective this is. Let's pretend the dream has some significant meaning for Foyt and for us as a nation. Notice how Foyt was in the car with Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson. He knew them. But there was a woman in the car that he didn't know. He wasn't recognizing her. And there was one other detail in his dream that he didn't understand. He was wearing glasses with 3 lenses. He could see through 2 of the lenses, but not the third. What if the meaning of the dream was in what Foyt didn't recognize and couldn't understand? What if the meaning was that the lenses Foyt and these patriarchal men look at the world through lead them to notice and get excited about the accomplishments and value of men, but not to recognize the value of women? Unfortunately, self-awareness doesn't seem to be a strong suit with these people, so they just jump on the interpretation that he did and continue waging warfare using violent language, and as Matthew D. Taylor points out, hanging out with violent people.
One of Cheon's closest friends and his right-hand prophet. And Lou Engle has recently started hanging out with this guy Hansel Orzame, who leads a church called Ecclesia Church in Pomona, California. And Ecclesia Church is at least locally notorious because it's the church where the Proud Boys go to get baptized. Hansel Orzame identifies himself as a Proud Boy. He's a pastor, and he leads a church for Proud Boys, where they have baptism services for Proud Boys. That's happening just next to Cheon's network. We also see an apostle in Cheon's network, a guy named Derek Gates, who was there on January 6th, who ran for Congress in California in the 2022 cycle. Here he is marching with a long gun next to Sarah Stevens, this far-right candidate for California governor, in this kind of elaborate far-right photo shoot where they're all walking together carrying their weapons, right? So we're seeing this overlapping between the militia movements and Cheon and his network. Continuing with that theme, there's this guy, Matt Shea. Matt Shea is part of the kind of old school far-right charismatic world. Matt Shea is a militia guy who was actually a member of the Washington State Legislature, a Republican in the Washington State Legislature, until he wrote a document called A Christian Manifesto for War, a biblical basis for war. And his own Republican colleagues in the Washington State Legislature cast him out, exiled him from their coalition, and referred him to the FBI for investigation for domestic terrorism. He is now a pastor in Spokane, and here he is hanging out with Sean Foyt, another member of Cheon's network, and they were praying over the mayor of Spokane. Jenny Donnelly, one of the major apostles in Cheon's network, went on Matt Shea's podcast. Lou Engle went on Matt Shea's podcast. So now we are seeing these folks kind of connect and start to interact. Matt Shea should not be anywhere within the respectable right. But now he's hanging out with all these people in Cheon's network. We've also seen, and this is the third point, this flood of entrepreneurial, independent, charismatic celebrities into local far-right activism. And I cannot overstate how much this is happening and how important this is. There are thousands of these folks emerging in all these local contexts, local pastors, local...
Even if we could trust that the innocent worshipers are merely metaphorically throwing rocks at their neighbors, we can't trust the reactions their violent language may fuel. Present at their events are everyone from anarchists to Proud Boys. Those people are hearing the same language about violence and warfare. They're listening to and getting swept up in the same worship music, with the same full bands and huge sound systems. Taylor wrote on X, quote, "This is a regular thing. Proud Boys, neo-Nazis, etc., at revivals. Christians who love their neighbor as themselves need to start being more vocal about the dangers these people are posing. We can't be at the mercy of whatever dream they might have. We can't be at the mercy of the armed militia around them having a measured self-control. We can't be at the mercy of the Trump administration recognizing the gaslighting. We have to commit to an uncompromising embrace of love through fostering wholeness, mutual belonging, and restorative justice." That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and rate us on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll be back with another episode on Monday.
This has been another change-making conversation from Baptist News Global. The episode you've just heard is part of a special podcast series titled Highest Power, Church and State. Be sure to follow BNG daily at baptistnews.com and subscribe to get notifications about future episodes. Baptist News Global is a national nonprofit news service that is independent, free, and faithful. BNG is supported by readers and listeners like you. Learn more at baptistnews.com.